Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Now you are into life coaching, essentially.
Yeah.
It's one of the things, anyway,
Yeah.
which I'd like to hear more about. But one of the things you texted me was you're now immersed in the lives of those who lack meaning or purpose.
Yeah.
And then that was just a part of a sentence. But that really jumped out to me. I've kind of 3 questions on that. Being immersed in the lives of those who lack meaning or purpose. How prevalent is this? How fixable is it? And how do you go about accomplishing
Those great questions. So that was part of when we planted Journey 15 years ago. I did it because I was a youth pastor for 13 years. I loved being with teenagers. And again, I kind of went kicking and screaming out of it. I just saw myself doing that for a lifetime. I suppose probably, it's hard to stay that relevant to a group of, adolescent culture is changing all the time. But when we planted the church and we had this kind of group of misfits, and a lot of people have been religiously wounded, and there was just kind of this space, again, kind of this divergent creative space to go, we don't have if you need certainty and answers, we're probably not the church for you. But if you got lots of questions and you're willing to lean into the mystery and live the mess with us, then hey, let's go. And that was kind of how the church grew. And then we had about 300 people. I remember being like, hey, can we not let anybody else in?
Yeah.
And I grew up in mega churches. I went to college. It was kind of a lot of mega church stuff. And I'm like, because I just see how people start to become numbers, names, almost like cattle, and they cease to be stories. And I didn't know so much. I mean, my pastoring, the whole thing was an experiment. I was just trying to make my way every day. And I know that healthy things grow. So you can't not let a thing grow. Now, I also know healthy things reproduce. So pretty quickly, we were like, well, what if we just kept telling people to leave and go plant new churches, which we did. We bought 10 other churches over the course of our 13, 14 years. But I think inherently, I just thought, I knew I don't really want to run an organization. And once it hits a certain point, that's what's going to happen, which is what happened. We grew, and then we eventually had to leave the factory. A guy bought it and asked us to leave, and which was, we kind of got kicked out of the nest, but it's always an opportunity to grow. But that was a really hard season. And then we had to find property, buy the property, build a building, etc. None of which I was really into. But I love the people. It was hard to say no, hard to leave. Probably some of my codependency. Let's take the filter off. My codependency also made it hard to leave. But yeah, being back kind of in the dirt of people's lives, like I'm in the rhythm, like, okay, I'm functioning as your coach to help you with transformation. Some people, they hire me for a season, and some people are like, yeah, I'm probably going to need this consistently. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of fit both categories. When I find people who are lacking meaning and purpose, it's usually at a pivot point in their life. So for your listeners, this would be a way to get ahead of it. If you have any listeners who are going to be empty nesters soon, their kids are junior, senior year, whatever, their last kid, when it comes, there's a lot of loss. And when that last kid leaves the home, this is especially true for moms. They had a degree, whether they were working moms, part-time, full-time, or not working moms, there's a degree of responsibility they felt for that child.
Yeah.
When that child leaves home, it's loss.
Yeah.
And it often affects meaning and purpose. If you have a health crisis, it often says to somebody, wait, I was doing this, working for the man or whatever else, but that doesn't have any meaning for me anymore. I now just stare death in the eyes, and I need something different. People who have a lot of wealth, sometimes like, I just cashed out, or I sold the company or whatever else. And, I've been playing golf for the last 6 months, but I don't really want to do that. And when you have lack meaning and purpose, if you get bored, that's often where you have most of your trouble. Mm-hmm. So I have a friend, Stephen Mansfield. I don't know if you know Stephen. So he works in D.C. and he's got a company there and a company here. But he says, guys who tend to fall apart in their lives, and you can walk through even some of the big names, presidents and whatever else, they got bored.
Yeah,
they weren't challenged anymore.
Yep.
So having a sense of like, why am I on the planet? What imprint do I want to leave? If you don't have answers to those questions, life can really be hard. Mm-hmm. So my job is to come and ask really good questions. Mm-hmm. So when I meet somebody, that's what I do. Yeah,
and people can read more about that at jamiegeorge.com, right? That's your website.
Yeah.
jamiegeorge.com. They can check that out. How about people that feel kind of stuck. They need something new. They need something different. They need new hope. Maybe they just kind of feel stuck.
Yeah.
What would be some of your words of encouragement or some steps maybe they could take?
So if you're stuck in your marriage, my first book was actually, it's called Love Well, Living Life Unrehearsed. And the whole thing is about how to get unstuck. So literally each chapter is like a step in getting unstuck in life, but especially in marriage. The whole thing's set up. Angie and I tell the story of when we were planning Journey, our marriage was on the rocks. So it was like the church is growing and we're dying. So we kind of tell that story. And it's on Amazon. So that's super, super practical. Love Well. But if you're kind of across the board, if you're like, I need something, start with questions. I'll give you another exercise too, maybe even before the questions, because you have to get what's stuck out. So you hit a glass ceiling or you don't have any words. Clarity is power. Language gives you clarity, which gives you power. And by power, I mean a sense of well-being, a sense of identity, a sense of knowing who you are, how you're showing up in the world, how to orient yourself. So the anxiety comes from, I don't know how to orient myself. I don't know who I am in this space. So Julia Cameron, in The Artist's Way, which is a wonderful book, she does a thing called morning pages. So what she says is get up in the morning. And so if you feel stuck, this is super easy. I mean, talk about low barrier. Get up in the morning, do it like, you could type it on your computer or just do it on a piece of paper. Like just get one of those yellow notebooks and just, in a morning pages, you write whatever's on your mind. There are no rules. I'm writing in my notebook. I'm hungry. My stomach is growling. I really could go for a cup of coffee. And why in the world did she say that to me last night? Who does she think she is to say that to me? I'm not sure we're going to pay the bill for that. What's the credit card number? How much do I owe? That faucet is leaking, I think. Who is God? Will my child come back to me when she's older? We need to buy her a new pair of jeans. Whatever's on your mind, get it out. There's something powerful about getting what's going on, spinning around in your mind, down onto the paper. Now, Julia's thing is don't even read it, throw the paper out. That the exercise itself of literally just putting it on paper is therapeutic in and of itself. Yep. It's clearing the mechanism, so to speak, so that you can see what you need to see. So I agree with that. Now, there's variations on that. You might read it back and have some insight, and some people use it for other things. But that's just super easy. Just get I'm not motivated. I want to lay around in bed. I've got the malaise. Okay, try that. But otherwise, I would just start with some questions. What bothers you most about the world? Start with what bothers you the most. What should be different? If you kind of find the angst, and then flip it. What gives you the greatest joy? When do you feel closest to heaven on earth? So let's do a quick exercise, you and me. So we're sitting down, we're having coffee, and you're like, man, I just feel stuck. So we'll start with the first one. So Kent, for you, when do you go, I think I was created for this? I feel closest to heaven on earth when I am what?
Yeah. Closest to heaven on earth is when I am on a horseback in Colorado.
Why?
Because I am close to nature and I'm experiencing the majestic beauty of creation all around me.
All right.
I feel close to God. I feel close to nature. And I feel like I can show up for people better if I have some of that.
Talk about the word close.
I feel when I'm in that setting, I feel that, I guess I feel close to, my thoughts feel clearer. I feel closer to God. I feel like it's kind of like a thin place. I feel like it's a thin place between heaven and earth.
Yeah. Does this word resonate at all? Is there an intimacy in it all?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
An intimacy, if you break that down, intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel deeply seen by the divine.
Mm-hmm.
and you feel like you're seeing him. There's some
Yes.
kind of recognition in the beauty of it all,
Yes.
in the slowing, in
Yep.
the stillness,
Mhm.
in the power of being on horseback. I mean, you're in a beast that's
Yep.
powerful. There's something kind of raw and primal about that.
Mhm. I'm in control.
There's a little control there. Are you really?
A
in
little bit,
control?
but not too much.
right. Because at any moment, that horse.
That's right.
I do a lot of horseback riding
I
too.
like that too.
At any
I
mo-
like that.
You,
I
so
like.
you like
I
a little of the risk.
100%.
Ah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's living,
part of
man.
it. There's the adventure.
Exactly.
All right, beautiful. All right, what gets you? What irks you the most? What is the thing that if you're like, if this thing could be fixed or changed, or this should be different on the planet?
Self-centered people. Self-centered people. Like narcissistic, imposing their will on others. Self-centered.
Okay, so let's do a quick projection work. Go inside, shadow work. Do you ever find that lurking in you?
I've already been there. Yes. The answer is yes, I do. You're right.
Yeah, right.
You're exactly right.
So one of the reasons it bothers you is because it's something you feel the darkness of it all.
Yes.
Like I don't want it in me,
Mm-hmm.
but it also shows up in my irritation
Yes.
with other people.
I hate it when I see it because I know it's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's put both of those next to each other. And if anybody's listening, they take themselves through this same process. Let's put them both next to each other. And you and I'll use different modalities. Like I might be like, hey, draw a picture of that. Oh, I'm not a great artist. Okay, draw it left-handed, or draw it whatever your non-dominant hand is. Draw it, because we know you're not an artist and you don't have to grade it. It's just, you're just sketching a thing. Or if you like words, put that into words.
Mm-hmm.
Put that, so act it out if you need to. Just somehow show it to me, or show it to yourself. So let's put those two things on the table. We got the one, I'll just say it in words. We've got the one is, man, this slowing, this kind of primal part of nature, but the risk of being on horseback, being in these wide open spaces, really connected, grounded to God. This other, gosh, I wish people were less self-centered. I wish would this be fair? I wish they could get grounded and feel deeply connected to God.
Yeah, that is fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would it look like to build your life around these two things that seem really unusual about Kent? Other people might have them, but not everybody does. So this is you. You're a light in the world, uniquely showing through your story. What, if we were to give this thing some direction, what might you do with your life? What would it look like for you to have purpose around these two things? How would you want to spend your time?
Well, I mean, I'm not trying to plug or come up with an obvious answer here, but I mean, the podcast would make the list.
Yeah.
Because I have put a fair amount of thought into that this year. Because I think what you can do with the podcast, you can learn, like I'm learning a lot, but then I also get to hone my communication skills. I also get to learn about better communication and those types of things, but then helps with other people and working with them, and you can have it's a good mix of having some adventure, but then also learning things that you incorporate. So yeah, I think aside from owning a ranch, which I think needs to happen at some point. Yeah. I would think the podcast would be one.
So the podcast now gives you a place of purpose and meaning because I get to actually, that shadow work, I get to kind of do some of my own work in real time.
Exactly.
Because I'm going to learn about me. So I get to learn while I'm in this process. But I also get to show some of that to other people, and perhaps they'll be less selfish, self-centered, and absorbed. And they might do some internal work. They might get curious about themselves.
Yes, exactly.
And they might be just a little bit better parent that day, or they might be a better spouse that day. Or
yes.
They might just shine a little light on the world.
Yes. That's it.
Is that fair?
That's very fair.
Okay.
That's it.
So then I might finish this with, so I have like an 8-week program I do. I'm condensing a lot into a very fast session. But if we condense that and we were to say, hey, put a couple words around that, we'd create some mission around it, and then turn it into a mantra or an affirmation or a prayer, but something to repeat. So just give me 3 or 4 words, as we talked about all that would be, these words resonate when I think about that.
Yeah, I have 3 teed up for you already.
Oh, look at you. What's up?
Enjoy.
I
like
that.
What do people enjoy? What's because I think there's a lot of insight there, and what do I enjoy? Believe, what do you believe? Like, what do you believe to be true? Because that dictates action. So like believe is a big thing. And my beliefs have changed about different things through the years, and it's had a direct impact then on how I live my life and the decisions I make. And build. And that's not necessarily in the right order, I guess. I'd probably go enjoy, build, believe, but build. Like, what are you building? You don't have to be a builder.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, in the past, it was various businesses and ventures and those types of things. Well, I'm also building my family, and I'm involved at church. We're trying to build that together, So I think the enjoy, build, and believe, I don't know how you tie it in like a sentence structure or whatnot, but those would be 3 words.
Yeah.
That I would say that's what the podcast is about. If we really kind of bring it down, it's, I think you could kind of anchor it or hang it off of those 3 words.
So, all right. So if someone was listening and they were to take themselves through this process, again, they're going to ask, hey, this is what irks me, or this is what frustrates me in the world. This is what I feel closest to heaven on earth. They follow this process. Then they try and they get some more languaging like we just did. Then there might be some story in it, metaphor if they need it. Then we drop it down to 3 words. Then you could say it. Here's a little frame they could use. So I want to, or I am, or I will. So it just makes it personal, gives it some ownership and responsibility, right? So Kent, if I'm Kent, I might say something like, I am here to enjoy, believe, and build, and then add some language to it. People's lives, an experience for others. Something. So you just add a little piece to that. So Jamie, I'm here to alleviate suffering and bind up the brokenhearted, the wounds of the brokenhearted. Alleviate suffering, bind up the wounds of the brokenhearted. If I do those 2 things, it's a great day.
You're true to yourself. Yeah.
True to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that we just kind of did a real quick exercise.
Yeah, that's great.
But,
thank you.
Yeah, but if somebody feels stuck, that's not a bad, again, and if they're like, yeah, that didn't work, I often spend a lot more time for people who are really in the concrete of like, my feet are, I've been stuck for weeks, months, years.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure if you have an 8-week course, then obviously there's no way you can just walk through what you do in 8 weeks in 5 minutes. But I don't think too many people are going to listen to that and be like, I don't get anything from that. And that was helpful. And I don't think it was helpful just because it was, you and I that were working through it. I think
we find ourselves in other people's stories. Right?
Exactly.
That's why we watch movies. It's why we read literature.
Yes.
We find ourselves there.
Yes.
That's the beauty of the Bible, I think.